On January 3, 2026, the world witnessed an unthinkable event. U.S. commandos executed a daring raid, capturing Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro. This wasn't just a military triumph. It was a brazen declaration of control. President Trump announced the U.S. was now in charge of Venezuela, swiftly securing a massive 50 million barrels of its oil. This wasn't a singular incident, but the latest move in a mathematically certain historical pattern. This hidden blueprint dictates global finance. Understand this pattern, and you'll unlock the secret to navigating the inevitable crisis ahead, protect your investments, and capitalize on the greatest wealth shift ever recorded. But this wasn't a sudden, isolated strike. The final order for Operation Absolute Resolve came from President Trump at 10:46 p.m. ET on a Friday. Elite troops had trained for months, even using a replica of Maduro's compound. They prepared for steel walls with massive blowtorches at the ready. This was a deep, calculated strategy for a high-value target. The U.S. military deployed at least 8 warships in the Caribbean by late August 2025. This buildup culminated in the Iwo Jima Amphibious Assault Group, a fleet of 4 vessels carrying 500 sailors positioned off Caracas. The operation itself lasted only a few hours, showcasing extreme efficiency in a grand display of force. Following his capture, Maduro now faces a 4-count federal indictment in New York, including narco-terrorism and cocaine importation charges. Venezuela's economy has suffered a staggering 75% GDP contraction since 2014, plagued by one of modern history's worst hyperinflation episodes. This dire economic reality creates a vacuum, ripe for external influence. Venezuela's journey as an oil titan began in 1914 with its first commercial well near Lake Maracaibo. A 1922 blowout there spewed 100,000 barrels of oil daily for over a week, revealing immense untapped potential that has drawn global powers for a century. This deep history of resource wealth confirms a repeating pattern. In this video, you will uncover the hidden blueprint behind these seemingly disparate events. You'll learn how this mathematically certain pattern dictates global finance, shapes geopolitical power, and ultimately directs the flow of wealth. We will reveal the exact stages of this predictable cycle, equipping you to protect your investments and seize unprecedented opportunities in the inevitable crisis ahead. Once you see this pattern, you cannot unsee it. But here's where the true pattern begins to reveal itself. The capture of Maduro wasn't a chaotic outburst. It was a meticulously orchestrated operation, a calculated investment by global powers. Airstrikes tore through the pre-dawn darkness of Caracas, with residents reporting continuous explosions. This wasn't just about taking down a leader. It was about paving the way, clearing the path for the ultimate prize. Every explosion, every targeted strike, was a strategic move in a much larger game of financial acquisition. Satellite imagery later confirmed the precise nature of the assault, a surgical strike, not a widespread shock and awe campaign. This was a laser-focused operation, targeting specific military complexes like Fort Tiuna and key air defense batteries. It minimized collateral damage, ensuring the underlying assets, the vast oil infrastructure, remained largely intact. This methodical approach is a hallmark of the pattern: efficient use of force, maximizing return on investment by securing resources with minimal disruption to their future exploitation. This is not about destruction, it's about control. As the U.S. forces moved swiftly through Caracas, a critical question hung in the air: where was the Venezuelan military? Reports indicated limited ground-to-air fire and a notable absence of aerial resistance. Experts suggested the Venezuelan Air Force was largely grounded, caught by surprise, and strategically hollowed out by years of neglect and corruption. This strategic impotence created a vacuum, an open door for the intervention. The pattern shows that when a nation's defense capital is depleted, it becomes a vulnerable target for external investors seeking resource control. And what were those explosions and rumblings truly signaling? Beyond the immediate targets, reports surfaced of oil wells rumbling and even blowing out around the time of the raid. This isn't just a coincidence. It's a direct connection to the heart of the financial motive. The oil, the very asset that has defined Venezuela's destiny for over a century, was reacting. This pattern consistently reveals that military action often directly precedes or coincides with the reactivation or realignment of key resource flows under new management. It's the ultimate indicator of a financial takeover. But this wasn't just an indicator of a financial takeover. This was the explicit, unvarnished declaration of intent. revealing the precise financial mechanisms at play. President Trump was remarkably open about his motivations regarding Venezuela's vast oil resources. He wasn't shy. He articulated a clear vision. American oil companies, the biggest in the world, would move in. They would spend billions of dollars. Their mission? To rebuild the badly broken oil infrastructure. The ultimate goal was for them to start making money for the country. This is a direct statement of economic conquest, strategically framed as reconstruction. It illustrates a fundamental pattern: political and military power directly facilitating massive wealth transfer and new investment opportunities for private capital. This wasn't about liberation. It was about assets and profit. It serves as a chilling template for future interventions. U.S. officials then solidified this long-term strategy, stating their intention to control Venezuelan oil sales and revenue indefinitely. This wasn't a temporary measure. It was deemed necessary to stabilize the country's economy, rebuild its oil sector, and crucially, to ensure Venezuela acted in America's strategic interests. Energy Secretary Chris Wright made it clear: this leverage and control over oil sales would drive the changes that simply must happen in Venezuela. Vice President J.D. Vance confirmed this chilling reality. He stated that controlling the energy resources meant effectively controlling the country. Venezuela would be allowed to sell its oil only if it served America's national interest. This establishes a clear financial strategy for geopolitical dominance, securing immense pressure without a permanent military presence. The overthrow of Maduro also opened the door for a specific financial restitution. It could enable major U.S. oil companies to recover assets seized by Venezuela years ago. ExxonMobil and ConocoPhillips, for instance, held billions of dollars in outstanding claims against Caracas. These were direct losses from the 2007 nationalization policies under former President Hugo Chavez. Now with Maduro out, the path cleared for these corporations to reclaim those significant financial damages. Chevron, already maintaining operations, found itself uniquely positioned to rapidly scale up production. Trump himself denounced the nationalization as one of the largest thefts of American property in history. He declared U.S. companies would take back the oil that should have been theirs long ago. This action isn't just about future profits. It's about rectifying past financial losses, a powerful incentive for military action. Beyond the sheer volume of Venezuela's reserves, there's a critical strategic element: the type of oil. Venezuela's heavy, sour crude oil is particularly important for U.S. Gulf Coast refineries. Most oil produced domestically in the U.S. is light, sweet crude. Our refineries, however, are specifically configured to process Venezuela's heavier grade. This crude is essential for producing key derivatives like asphalt, heating oil, and diesel, which are vital for American industry and infrastructure. A reliable, nearby supply of this specific type of crude represents a massive economic advantage. It strengthens refinery resilience. It expands U.S. leverage over global energy markets. This isn't just about securing any oil. It's about securing the right kind of oil for a deeply integrated financial system. Financial implications are undeniable, but here's the deeper truth: the hidden pattern beneath the surface of that Venezuelan raid. This wasn't just about seizing oil. This was a direct strike in a silent, escalating financial war, a desperate move to protect America's most valuable asset, the dollar itself. In November 2025, a seismic event occurred in Hong Kong that few noticed, yet its tremors shook the foundations of global finance. China issued $4 billion in U.S. dollar-denominated bonds, a seemingly routine transaction. But the demand was staggering. Orders flooded in, totaling $118 billion, a 30-fold oversubscription. The truly alarming part? These Chinese bonds began trading at times lower yields than U.S. Treasury bonds, despite China holding a lower credit rating. This wasn't just fundraising. It was a chilling proof of concept, a clear signal that an alternative to the dollar system is not only possible but already functioning. This exorbitant privilege of the dollar, which allows the U.S. to borrow cheaply and finance its deficits by printing money the world is compelled to use, is slowly eroding. Venezuela, with its vast oil reserves, had become ground zero in this existential battle for financial dominance. The geoeconomics of this situation reveal a complex web linking commodities, currency settlement, and adversarial economic influence. Venezuela, despite its immense oil wealth, was not just another producer. It was a critical node in a sanctions-evading energy corridor operating outside the U.S. Financial control. For years, approximately three-quarters of Venezuela's oil exports, estimated at 800,000 to 900,000 barrels per day, flowed to China. These transactions were often discounted and, crucially, settled in yuan, not dollars. Much of this oil was used to service an estimated $13 billion to $20 billion in outstanding debt from China's total $60 billion in lending to Venezuela, effectively locking its energy sales into a non-dollar financial ecosystem. By disrupting the status quo, the U.S. forces China to replace this guaranteed discounted supply with purchases on the global market, thereby increasing China's exposure to dollar settlement and sanctions enforcement. This makes Venezuelan oil less of a prize and more of a denial weapon, strengthening U.S. refinery resilience and expanding leverage over both oil suppliers and buyers, including weakening Canada's position in future trade talks as U.S. dependence on Canadian heavy crude is reduced. This strategic move also has profound long-term implications for global energy security and investment. Venezuela holds an estimated 303 billion barrels of crude oil, representing about 17% of the world's proven supply. Unlike other regions, these reserves are largely mapped and known, offering a clear path to future production. While global supply currently exceeds demand in the short term, energy analysts widely predict a significant oil shortage in the 2030s and 2040s. The International Energy Agency estimates that by 2035, approximately 25 million barrels per day of new oil supply projects will be needed to balance markets. Venezuela's heavy sour crude is particularly valuable for U.S. Gulf Coast refineries, which are specifically configured to process this grade, in contrast to the lighter, sweet crude produced domestically. Securing this reliable, nearby supply could significantly benefit American refineries, increasing the availability of vital products like diesel and jet fuel, and potentially lowering overall energy prices. However, rebuilding Venezuela's dilapidated infrastructure and restoring its production from a mere 1% of global output will require massive capital investment, estimated at tens of billions annually, and robust political stability, a challenge given the country's history of nationalization. This intervention, therefore, isn't merely about current oil flows. It's about projecting future financial and geopolitical power. Analysts now suggest President Trump commands his Monroe Doctrine, an increasingly belligerent Washington sphere of influence over the Americas, encompassing nearly 40% of the world's oil output. This gives the U.S. an economic and geopolitical lever unseen since the 1940s. With unfettered access to Venezuela's colossal reserves, the U.S. gains the means to influence global oil prices, potentially keeping them near $50 a barrel. This provides a decisive advantage against any nation threatening to curb supply, effectively neutralizing the leverage of traditional oil powers like Saudi Arabia and adversaries like Russia. Trump can now confidently tell Vladimir Putin that the U.S. no longer needs Siberian fields. It has more than enough. The long-term financial payoff for U.S. oil companies is immense, with projections of Venezuela potentially restoring its output to over 5 million barrels a day, a level last seen in the 1970s. This isn't just a military victory. It's a strategic financial maneuver designed to reshape the global energy landscape and reinforce American primacy. But here's where the true pattern reveals itself, the hidden truth most people miss about the Venezuela raid and the emerging Monroe Doctrine. It wasn't just about oil or even geopolitical power. It was about something far more fundamental, the desperate escalating crisis of America's own finances. Our public finances are a mess, a growing debt crisis fueling an aggressive foreign policy. Think about that. The numbers are undeniable. The U.S. national debt just hit a staggering new high of $38.5 trillion. This isn't just a big number. It represents the largest amount the country has ever owed to both domestic and foreign lenders. Interest payments alone now exceed $1 trillion annually, more than our entire defense spending. This is not sustainable. What's truly alarming is the speed of this collapse. This $38.5 trillion milestone was expected years from now, closer to 2030, according to previous projections. National debt surged past this point years ahead of schedule. This acceleration highlights how rapidly federal borrowing has spiraled, now deeply weighing on the country's entire financial structure. This is an economic heart attack in slow motion, and the future looks even grimmer. President Trump's proposed $1.5 trillion military budget for fiscal year 2027 would add significantly to this already crushing national debt. Fiscal watchdogs warn this plan alone would pile on another $5.8 trillion over the next decade, once interest costs are factored in. This isn't just spending, it's an economic abyss. So the Venezuela raid, the push for an oil empire, the aggressive stance, it's not just about power projection, it's a desperate scramble. When your own house is crumbling under a mountain of debt, you seek to control external resources, to offshore your financial problems. You seek assets and revenue streams to prop up a system that is mathematically certain to fail otherwise. This is the financial pattern of declining empires, a desperate grab for anything to extend the inevitable. The aha moment is this: the U.S. is not just asserting dominance, it's fighting for its financial life. For investors, understanding this underlying desperation is key to navigating the coming turbulence. But here's the deeper truth, the hidden pattern behind this desperation. This wasn't just about Venezuela. The global response quickly revealed a profound reevaluation of international norms. Observers worldwide now scrutinize a clear, territorial ambition emerging from Washington, leading to accusations of new imperialism. This isn't just political talk. It's a declaration of a new world order. It suggests that economic necessity now justifies aggressive resource control. For investors, this redefines risk. It means a superpower is willing to unilaterally secure resources, challenging traditional asset protection and international law. This is a dangerous new phase for global finance. This wasn't an isolated incident. The events in Venezuela illustrate a chillingly familiar pattern, one that defines Venezuela under empire throughout history. We've seen this play out before. Empires facing internal decay inevitably turn outwards, seeking to control external wealth. This isn't an evolution. It's a reversion to a brutal, predictable cycle. It's the same pattern, just a new target. Understanding this pattern is your secret weapon. It reveals the true drivers of geopolitical risk and where the next resource conflicts will emerge. Money follows power, but power often flows from desperation. The fallout from the Venezuela operation extends far beyond its borders. We are seeing major global implications unfold, reshaping the very fabric of international relations and economic stability. This single act sends a clear message to every nation and every market. It asserts a dominant nation's right to unilaterally secure resources, bypassing established international frameworks. This action will reshape alliances and trade agreements for decades. Expect increased volatility in commodity markets. Supply chains will reevaluate their dependencies. Capital flight from perceived high-risk regions could accelerate. This is the dawn of a new, more aggressive era for resource geopolitics, directly impacting your portfolio. This action directly challenges the strategic interests of global powers, like China, Russia, Iran, and Cuba. China, for instance, loses vital energy security and faces disruptions to debt repayment schedules. Russia now sees its influence in the hemisphere diminished. These are not minor inconveniences. They are direct assaults on their global positions. This will trigger countermeasures. Expect accelerated de-dollarization efforts, new bilateral trade agreements, and increased investment in alternative payment systems. For the savvy investor, this shift creates both immense risk and unprecedented opportunities in emerging markets that seek to circumvent the established financial order. This isn't a theoretical exercise. This is real-world economics playing out with military force. It shows you the lengths to which a financially strained empire will go to maintain its dominance. What does this mean for your investments? It means understanding that the old rules are breaking. It means recognizing that financial stability is now intrinsically linked to geopolitical aggression. So what do you think? Are we witnessing a desperate grab for survival or a calculated reassertion of global power? How do you plan to navigate this new financial landscape? Let me know in the comments below. The raid on Venezuela wasn't just a fleeting headline. It was a seismic tremor, sending shockwaves through global markets and unveiling the true cost of imperial desperation. We saw gold surge, climbing to over $4 an ounce almost instantly. This isn't random market noise. It's a clear signal from investors, fleeing uncertainty and seeking safe havens against the backdrop of currency debasement and escalating geopolitical risk. This is the market pricing in raw power, revealing where real wealth seeks refuge when the world shifts beneath its feet. Look closely. The audacious capture of a sitting head of state by a foreign power fundamentally redraws the lines of international conduct. This unprecedented act signals a profound shift in global sovereignty, tearing up old diplomatic norms and replacing them with a new rulebook written in force. Every nation, every market, must now recalibrate its understanding of what is permissible on the global stage. This is a new era of risk. The long-term implications for regional stability are already profoundly unsettling, impacting everything from critical trade routes to fragile investment confidence. When established diplomatic norms crumble, volatility becomes the new, dangerous constant for capital. This makes future political transitions inherently more unpredictable, creating immense systemic risk for any portfolio exposed to these geopolitical fault lines. This wasn't an isolated event. It was a critical escalation in a century-long struggle for absolute control over Venezuela's vast, proven oil reserves. This relentless pursuit of essential resources defines empires in their final, most desperate stages. It's a brutal pattern repeated throughout history, now playing out on a global stage where your financial future is directly in the balance. The pattern is undeniable, mathematically certain. Empires, when facing internal decay and financial strain, inevitably turn to external resource grabs. This isn't just about Venezuela. It's a chilling blueprint for what's coming next, wherever vital resources are found. The question isn't if this will happen again, but where and how you position your assets before the next tremor hits. What hidden patterns are you seeing now? How are you preparing your investments for this inevitable future of resource conflicts and market upheaval? Share your insights below. Your financial survival depends on seeing the unseen.